Part 40. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 391. The time is 18 o'clock. The buildings in front of Tiangong Station were penetrated by the orange sunset. The three of them visited all the interesting places nearby and walked in a small park with a high platform where they could have a panoramic view of the best scenery. To Xiang, are you happy today? Looking at To Xiang holding the ridiculously large bread pillow in his hand, yeah, you asked with a chuckle. I'm very happy. It turns out that dating is such a happy thing. Holding the pillow in her arms tightly, Toa looked happy. It seems that he still has a deep obsession with bread. Looking at Shixiang, who has been hugging the bread pillow in her hand tightly, yeah, you couldn't help but laugh. Recalling that when he and Itsuka Shiori struggled to take out the bread from the toy machine with the few remaining coins, Toa's smile was like that of a child who got a favorite toy. You couldn't help but feel warm. Although he is an elf, although he is called the disaster of the world, although he has the power to make people fear, but in essence, he is just a pure child. Such a cute girl is going to be killed or something. Itsuka Shiori thought this and made more decisions in his heart. How could something like this be allowed? It will never be allowed to happen. At the same time, under the bridge, in the shadow of the setting sun, two pairs of eyes were watching quietly. Huh. With a slightly heavy sigh, Ryuko Kusakabe narrowed her eyes and licked her lips. The existence consistency rate is 98.5%. It is not a level that can be explained by chance. Elf. The disaster that kills the world. The girl who turned this land into scorched earth 30 years ago is the same species as the most ferocious and evil disease god known as the Great Fire 5 years ago. But the figure now reflected on Liazi's retina was just that of a cute girl. Sniper permission, a quiet, or rather cold, heartfelt voice came from behind Liazi. Without even looking back, Ryuko knew that it was her partner for this mission, Tobiichi Origami, a girl with extreme hatred towards elves. Like Ryuko, the wiring suit is equipped with a propulsion unit, and in his right hand he holds an anti-elf rifle cry that is longer than himself. Ordinary firearms are just a joke to the powerful elves. In order to deal with them, members of the AST organization have also done a lot of research, such as the firearm in Tobiichi Origami's hand at the moment. Although it is theoretically a weapon that can cause fatal damage to elves, it has not been actually used, so it is not clear how effective it will be. No command has been issued, which means it is on standby, or it is still in agreement with a certain adult, right? Ryuko explained to Tobiichi Origami. Is it? Not looking relieved or discouraged, Origami nodded. There was no early warning of the space earthquake, and because they were worried about the destructive power of the elves, they did not dare to launch an attack directly. There were ongoing discussions in the organization. But this is a great opportunity, Origami said in her usual unemotional tone. Indeed, as Origami said, this is an opportunity. The reason why is that there is no spiritual equipment appearing on the elves now. Similar to the random realms of the Ryukos, the elves do not have the shell to become the strongest and ultimate invincible life form. Now, the attack here has a good chance of hitting. Once it hits, the elves must be killed, he said coldly. Tobiichi Origami once again operated the firearm in his hand. The streamlined gun body reflected the cold light in the setting sun, as cold as Tobiichi. The Origami whole person blends into one. It has to be said that this is a gamble. The bet is whether the elf can be killed with one blow. If this cannot be achieved, it is really hard to imagine what the elf will do after being attacked. It is precisely because of such a huge risk that the AST organization's blocking order has never been issued. They don't dare to take risks casually. After all, killing elves with one blow is just what they take for granted. Although CCC is a special sniper gun for elves, there is no case where such a gun has been used successfully. Example of killing elves? So after tracing the root cause, Even Tobiichi Origami was not sure, but she was still unwilling to give up this opportunity. The opportunity to kill an elf at such a close range may never come across again. So even if the chance of success is only 1%, Tobiichi Origami still has to give it a try, otherwise she will never give in. The elves, the scourge of the world, must be killed. Shizi, just wait a minute, I will kill the elf and rescue you. On Tobiichi Origami, the random field developed by the incredible technology has been expanded. The power of the sniper rifle is so huge that if an ordinary human uses it, his arm will definitely be broken by the reaction force. The so-called random field is a device similar to an elf's spiritual equipment, which is enough to withstand the elf's multiple attacks. I really didn't expect to actually use this gun. Looking at the ferocious gun in Tobiichi Origami's hand, Ryuko thought softly. But will the sniper order really be issued? No matter how you think about it, it is impossible. Would a big shot with a sunny day in his mind really give permission to attack in this situation? Ryuko asked Tobiichi Origami seemingly casually. It would have bothered me if it hadn't been sent out. This is a rare opportunity. After Ryuko finished speaking, Origami immediately continued. Lizzie clearly felt the girl's resentment towards the elf, but there was nothing she could do about it. After all, her parents died at the hands of the elf. Although he was not killed by the elves himself, he was innocently killed in the space earthquake caused by the elves. Well, considering the situation at the scene, it is indeed a rare opportunity to attack, and that's right. But after the attack permission is issued, if there is not a fatal blow, and the elves start making a fuss, the elves don't care. I've never heard of someone who makes a big fuss without thinking about it and appears, etc. There must be various reasons when it comes to investigating the issue of liability, Ryuko said, spreading her hands in a helpless manner. It would be very troublesome to decide for that reason. So, there are many adults whose status is more important than human life. Lizzie said and shrugged. Although Origami's expression didn't change at all, she felt a little unhappy for some reason. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 392. The wait didn't last long, and soon, a somewhat noisy idle came from Ryuko Kuzakebe's earphones. Yes, this is location A. The result is like, Ryuko opened her eyes wide because of the information that reached her eardrum. Understood. After saying that, Lizzie ended the call. I'm scared that the sniper permission has actually been issued. Holding her chest to tell the truth, Lizzie was a little surprised. I thought that the standby command would undoubtedly be issued. However, speaking of it, yesterday's attack order on the school building was also an attack strategy that had not been considered at all until now. It was probably due to a personnel change in the top policy. Well, Ryuko was just doing his job. To be specific, give the trigger to the team member with the highest combat success rate. Origami, you come and shoot. Of all the people here, you are the most suitable. Target elf, ignore that man. Failure is not allowed. You must kill with one blow. Looking at Kite, who had been lying on the ground calmly. As soon as she folded the paper, Ryuko suddenly felt that her reminder was a little redundant. The other party would definitely complete this task perfectly. After all, the idea of revenge is sometimes more powerful than any force. Understood, he still replied with 2 words coldly. Tobiichi Origami had completely entered the state, like a precise machine. Fine-tune, aim, and pull the trigger, 3 steps in one go. The bullet specially developed for elves would have difficulty catching its trajectory even with vision enhanced countless times by random fields. The next moment it hit, it would have been if Itsuka Shiori hadn't pushed Toa down. He made an unpleasant sound as if something was stuck in his mouth, and a completely uncontrollable tremor came from his body. Actually took Sister Shizi. The jewel-like pupils seemed to have lost their luster at this moment, and they did something absolutely unforgivable, just now. Origami. Captain Liazi's urgent voice sounded in his ears and he came back to his senses a little. I will regret it later. I will scold you to death later. So now, just concentrate on thinking about ways to survive. Survive. Would I still be allowed to live after doing such a thing? AST. Even you didn't have time to react to what happened just now, or because his attention was all on Toa, he didn't have time to save Will-He-Shiori. The attack was made with firearms. Cold weapons had no murderous intent, so you only realized what happened the moment the trigger was pulled. Assassinations from AST members. Even if he reacted at the end, you was confident that he could save Toa instantly, but what he didn't expect was that Itsuka Shiori would actually pounce at this time. He did put up an ice shield in front of Toa, but the bullet penetrated Itsuka Shiori's body first. What a idiot. He stepped forward and hugged Itsuka Shiori's body. The bright red liquid covered his hands. However, the human Itsuka Shiori was completely unable to withstand such a terrible attack. The girl lost a part of herself, half of her body. All disappeared, leaving an ugly scar. What happened? Toa, who fell to the ground because of Itsuka Shiori's actions, looked at her hands in confusion. Blood, slightly warm blood that seemed to contain the breath of life, just slipped down her fingertips. Somewhat frightened, he reached out his hand and shook the completely unconscious body of Itsuka Shiori. There was a kind of tears called sorrow and despair in his crystal eyes. After a short silence because she was too sad, Cuckoo's cry of blood burst out from Toa's throat. The space seemed to resonate with her and cry, and the world full of colors collapsed in an instant. Calm down Toa, Shiori can still be saved. The girl's condition is close to collapse, but you can't take time out, because now as soon as he leaves Will-He-Shizi's body, the girl's weak fire of life will be completely extinguished. But it was obvious that the girl who had lost her mind could no longer hear Yu's words. Divine Powerful Spiritual Equipment, Chapter 10. The name, spiritual equipment, was wrenched from the depths of his throat, as the absolute strongest, Toa's territory. In an instant, the world cried. The surrounding scenery was distorted and wrapped around Toa's body, forming the shape of a solemn spiritual suit. Then the shining film decorated the inner part of the long skirt. Disaster has arrived. Crunch, crunch. The sky creaked. It was as if she was chattering dissatisfied with Toa, who suddenly appeared in a spiritual outfit. Toa lowered his gaze slightly. On the high platform that looked like a leveled mountain, the human who had just shot Itsuka Shiori was there. There is a human being who cannot resolve the hatred in his heart even if he kills him. Toa stepped on the ground with his heel, and instantly, a throne with a huge sword appeared from there. The aura of violence seemed to erupt from the throne like never before in response to the master's anger. Toa kicked the ground with a thud, jumped onto the armrest of the throne, and pulled out the sword leaning on the back. Then, the throat vibrated. Kill the male fiercely. She seemed to want to declare the grief and anger in her heart to the whole world that had abandoned her in this way. The dream sword was raised high by Toa. The trembling thing is a sword, and there is a girl's heart. The scream in his throat was just a sound made out of venting. Kill everything, destroy everything, destroy everything. This world or something, is not needed at all. The ground was shaking, and cracks spread like spider webs under the girl's boots. Shouting, in order to numb one's mind and destroy oneself. How dare you? My eyes are moist. How dare? How dare? How dare? How dare? How dare? Roaring without reason, like a wild beast. Toa put strength into the hand holding the sword, and slashed it down as far as the front of her sight. I told you to calm down, did you hear me? The roar sounded, and not only Toka, but also Tobiichi Origami and Kusakabe Ryuko, who were desperate, were awakened. The giant sword that was tearing apart the heaven and the earth was stopped with one hand just before it hung high above their heads. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 393. Yeah, you, Shizi, she. The furious girl finally calmed down because of this roar, and tears slowly flowed from Toa's eyes. The girl was sad and crying, and she was crying because of Shiori Itsuka, whom she had become a friend with soon after getting along. Don't worry, Shizi can still be saved. Calm down. Have you forgotten what I said? Think about the possible consequences before doing anything. Are you planning to destroy Tiangong City? While Yayu was comforting Toa, on the other side of the hillside, Kusakabe Ryuko couldn't help but moan. He was stopped. The attack of such a monster was actually stopped by him with one hand. Because he is a real monster, a monster that tears the world apart. Tobiichi Origami murmured to himself in such a dejected manner. With the death of Itsuka Shiori, the girl seemed to have lost her soul. Hurry, leave quickly, I won't be able to control the power of the sword. Although he has woken up from the violent state, and the slashing was stopped by Yayu with one hand, but this does not mean that everything is fine. It's over. After activating the spiritual equipment, even Toa herself couldn't control the power and went berserk. Even she didn't know what she would do. Don't worry, what if it's just this kind of power? Sensing the destructive dark purple thunder entwining above the final sword, Yayu just smiled lightly without caring. This kind of power can't hurt me. Yayu said, then he pinched Jianfeng's palm and began to exert force slowly. There was a click, a crisp sound, and then ferocious cracks began to spread along the tip of the weapon. This power is. Toa was dumbfounded as she watched her weapon being crushed by Yayu. Staring blankly at the dark purple fragments flying in the sky, his strongest spiritual equipment, the final sword, was actually crushed like this. This is a spiritual equipment that even I can't perfectly control. Toa, having power is actually a sad thing, especially when this power cannot be controlled by oneself, and even oneself will be affected by the power in turn. You can't even get close to your relatives and friends because you don't know if doing so will cause any irreparable harm to them. People will fear you, but they will not fear you, because you are just a monster controlled by powerful forces. I'm sorry, Yayu, it's all my fault. I shouldn't take action against them, but Shizi. Shixiang didn't understand what Yayu was talking about, but the girl still felt guilty. Because as he said, if Shizi can still be saved, then his actions just now will only make things worse. Don't worry, I will guide you and let you fully control your power. As for Shizi, don't worry, she is fine. I will freeze her body for the time being. Yayu said this, he didn't think Shizi would die so simply, because like Toa, she had strange power hidden in her body, which seemed to be the same power as the elves. Moreover, there is another person who cares more about Shizi who has remained silent, making Yayu not believe that Shizi died like this. Itsuka Kotori, the sister of Itsuka Shiori, the commander of Fraxinus. There is no doubt that this mysterious girl knows a lot of things and has powerful power, otherwise he would not become the leader of such a huge organization. At the same time, the bridge of the Fraxinus is located high in the sky. Contrary to Yavu Kotori's reaction, the crew members seemed very impatient and couldn't understand why Kotori could still be so quiet. You must know that the person lying quietly in a pool of blood now was her sister. Quiet. Kotori turned the lollipop in her hand and said to her subordinates who looked embarrassed. Fraxinus Bridge. What was displayed on the front display was the battle image of Itsuka Shiori, who had his body pierced and fell down, and the subsequent elf Toa. Although the situation got extremely bad in an instant, it was fortunately stopped. Although the space shock alarm finally started to sound, it is enough to directly carry out evacuation work now. This guy Yayu is more terrifying than I imagined. So the question is, what kind of existence is he? Why is his commander still so calm? You must know that the person who died was her sister. Well, you are really like an idiot. It is obvious that the two people in front of you are inhuman beings, but you want to seek your own death for no reason. Licking the lollipop, Kotori suddenly spoke. The crew looked at their commander with fearful eyes, and they could still say such calm words after the death of their sister. In addition to the two people, Murasame Rain and Kanazuki, who is the deputy commander. Murasame Rain was still concentrating on her work, while Kanazuki just looked at the screen and looked a little pale. Okay, continue your work. What do you think? How could Shizi end up like this? Kotori said with a slight smile. "Si, Commander, who is that?" a confused voice rang out, and a smile appeared on Kinri's face that she had everything under control. He moved the lollipop in his mouth to another position with his tongue and head, turned the swivel chair and looked at the big screen again. He, let's start. When dealing with two inhuman beings, Shizi naturally has to have something special of his own. The picture in front of him reflected the motionless Itsuka Shiori lying in the park. But suddenly, the girl's supposedly lifeless body started to burn, and the crew members made a sound of surprise, because the huge wound on Itsuka Shiori's body was disappearing as it burned. Then, after being licked by the flames, Shiori's completely regenerated body existed there. Then, ugh! It's so hot, so hot. The girl jumped when she saw the flames still smoking in her belly. Then he patted his abdomen in panic and extinguished the flames. What about me? There was an incomprehensible look on Wuhi Shiori's face. Her sister helped Toa block the blocking attack, and then half of her body was beaten to pieces. She couldn't die anymore, but why? Shizi, it's great that you're okay. Just when Wuhi Shizi was still in a daze, there was a sound of crying with joy beside him. Toa, who came back to his senses, rushed over and hugged Wuhi Shizi in his arms. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 394. Hey, me. Wuhi Shizi was still a little confused. Not long ago, she felt a creepy sense of danger, and then subconsciously stopped in front of Toa. Then she was shot, her body was like a broken doll, it should be dead. But why, suddenly he came to life again. Just now I felt something very hot, as if it was burning, and then I woke up. Just after he woke up, Shizi saw Toa's crying face, and he was hurriedly hugging the excited girl. Shizi didn't know what to say. Are you stupid? Before he could regain his senses, Yayu on the other side said such words. Hey. We are just a fragile human being. Why would we do such a stupid thing? Do you think Toa and I are helpless against this kind of attack? Yayu said angrily, while Wuhi Shizi blushed and scratched his head and said embarrassedly. Then, at that time, my body was so disobedient and started to move without permission. This is not bravery but stupidity. Do you know what happened just after you died? Toa almost went on a rampage. If I hadn't stopped him in time, I'm afraid the entire Tiangong city would have been destroyed. Hey, did such an exaggerated thing happen? Wuhi Shizi couldn't help but let out a scream, and Toa on the side also showed an embarrassed look. Yes, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I have obviously agreed to control my power. Toa said sadly. The girl was really happy to have a human friend, so she was so crazy when she lost her at that time. Toa also knew very well that if she couldn't control her own power, what Yayu said would still happen, and maybe she would be the one to hurt Shizi next time. Don't be anxious about things like this. Don't worry, you will definitely control your own power. You must firmly believe that this is something that belongs to you, and it will naturally be controlled by you. Toa nodded slightly, and immediately the girl seemed to feel something, and she spoke with some embarrassment. That Yayu and Shiji, sorry, maybe I have to leave. What's wrong? Shizi showed a puzzled expression, and Yayu felt that there seemed to be an inexplicable force acting on Toa's body, as if he wanted to take him away. Elves cannot stay in this world for a long time. After a certain period of time, they will be pulled out of this world and sleep in the endless darkness. Toa explained to Itsukashi Ori in a sad tone. I can't resist leaving like this, and I don't know when I will wake up next. Isn't there a way to stop this? Shizi said anxiously, while Toa had closed her eyes and was waiting to return to the dark world. Yayu, there's nothing you can do about it. Shizi looked at Yayu beside her. She didn't know why, but she just believed in this man and believed that he was omnipotent. Yayu didn't speak. He just looked at Shixiang in front of him quietly, and looked at the beautiful and undefended girl with her eyes closed. Then he smiled softly, took a step forward, and held Toa in his arms under the surprised gaze of Shizi. One hand reached out and lifted Toa's flowing dark purple hair, and then he leaned over and pressed his lips to the girl's lips. At the same time, noticing Yayu's actions, Shixiang opened her eyes in a panic, and then she was kissed directly by the man. Yayu, the blushing girl's words were blocked just as she had time to say them out. She obviously had strong power, but she didn't struggle at all, as if she was afraid that her power would hurt Yayu. There was an indescribable fragrance in the soft lips of the girl. Yayu was like a greedy child, tirelessly pursuing this beauty, and his hands gradually replaced Shixiang's body. Wow, so strange, what is this? Woohoo, so weird, don't, Toa, I'm getting so weird. The girl who couldn't make a sound could only scream in her heart. I don't know how long it lasted, but when Shixiang was having difficulty breathing due to his kiss, Yayu reluctantly let go of the lips of the girl in his arms. Ha, ha. To Xiang gasped after being released, his whole face turned red, and he raised his body on Yayu's body in a panic. Ah, what happened? Why do I feel so strange? Is this also a step in dating? Although it's weird, it's also so comfortable. Shixiang was thinking in a daze, but she didn't know when the spiritual equipment on the girl's body gradually collapsed. At this moment, the girl in Yayu's arms became half naked and looked very alluring. Then, Toa noticed the strange look in Yayu's eyes, and when she discovered the current situation, she pressed her chest in panic. Stop looking, idiot. The kiss just made Toa feel strange, but now having her whole body exposed to the other person made Toa subconsciously feel very ashamed. A normal girl would subconsciously push the man away when encountering this kind of thing, but Toa's behavior was exactly the opposite. After the girl exclaimed, she hugged Yayu tightly and held her beautiful body tightly. It stuck to Yayu's body. This behavior made Yayu a little funny, but it also made him unable to see anything. But the visual stimulation turned into tactile stimulation, which made Yayu even more miserable. At the same time, feeling her skin rubbing against Yayu's clothes, Toa's face couldn't help but turn redder. But soon, a happy smile appeared on the girl's face, and she raised her head slightly. Yayu. Kindness. Can you continue dating me? Yes, forever. With a chuckle, Yayu lowered his head and kissed the girl's bright lips again. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 395. Above. The Fraxinus Special Communications Room can only be entered by Kodari as the commander. Kodari ended her report with these words while supporting the round table in the center of the dimly lit room. Conveying reports on the elf strategy and recovery. The auras of 5 people including Kodari could be felt on the round table. But, in fact, only Kodari was in the Fraxinus, and the other members participated in the meeting through the loudspeakers installed on the round table. Do you have any clues about the identity of the man named Yayu? Is it possible that he is an elf? The person who made a somewhat deep voice was the rough-made cat doll on the right side of Kodari. Well, to be precise, it came from the loudspeaker in front of the doll, but from Kodari's perspective, it was just an ugly cat talking. How many brains did you use to come to such a conclusion? Obviously all elves are female, Kinlai said lazily while holding his fingers. Didn't the target use a power that even the elves trembled? This is really too dangerous. This time it was the mouse with a crying expression sitting on the left who made a quiet voice. Yayu, even if he is not an elf, he is more dangerous than an elf, he sighed with a worried voice. Kodari shrugged. Well, there's nothing we can do about it. This group of old guys are always worried about this and that. Even the dating plan that they proposed at the beginning took a long time to be approved. From this point, it can be seen that these old guys are already timid. To what extent? I feel so inexplicably unmotivated when I'm with these guys. But now we should thank that guy. Because of his relationship, the abnormality in Sister Shizi was temporarily ignored, and the attention of these guys fell on Yayu. Since the terrible space earthquake 5 years ago, he became the commander of this organization. Then Fraxinus was built and the crew was recruited. The fundamental reason why Kodari did this was to protect her sister Shiori and the unknown power in her body from being noticed and discovered. But in the end, an accident happened. Shizi's extraordinary power was exposed to everyone, but it was obscured by Yayu's light. The ice that pierced the sky on the campus a few days ago, and not long ago, crushed the elf spirit outfit with one hand. Such power is really terrifying. This power was so terrifying that it broke the existing balance, which also panicked a few old guys who thought that the elves were easy to deal with and could be completely controlled in their hands. Although the elf possesses powerful power, she is a girl who is inexperienced in the world. It is very easy to control a girl like this. But Yayu was different. Such a man with powerful power and a clear statement that he was on the side of the elves made everyone in the upper management panic. I know what you are worried about. Don't worry. No matter what he is, I can easily take him down. And at least he is a rational being. As long as his bottom line is not touched, I don't think he will be our enemy. Kintori's confident speech dispelled the worries of several people. 2. The next person who spoke out was, sitting next to the ugly cat, was a tiger-headed dog with an extremely stupid design of dribbling and drooling. So now, what's the status of the spirit called Toa? After being taken into custody by Fraxinus, judging from the experience, it has become very stable. No space shock or noise has been observed. Although it is impossible to know how much power is left without investigation, but at least it is probably very stable. It's hard to say that it's at the level of killing the world just by existing. After Kodari finished speaking, 3 of the 4 dolls at the round table held their breath. So, at least for now, is it okay for elves to exist in this world? Ugly Cat said with a visibly shaken look. Kodari's eyes were filled with disgust, but she still replied with a calm tone, that's right. On the other hand, if you want to disappear into the neighborhood on your own, it will be difficult. Then at least the initial plan of the operation has been achieved, and the threat of space shock has been eliminated. Since the battle plan is effective, let's continue to execute it. This time the target is that man. I think you and your sister should be able to do it perfectly, right? So for the sake of human peace, I look forward to your future performance, Commander Wu-hee. Yes. Kodari straightened her posture for the first time and put her hands on her chest. After pushing open the door of the sealed room, Murasame Rain stood waiting at the door with an indifferent expression. How's it going? He said softly when he saw Kinri coming out. a bunch of old men are annoying to death, but we finally settled it, Kotori said complainingly, holding her forehead with one hand. Speaking of now, where are my sister and the others? Ah, because all Toa's clothes have disappeared, it is said that Yayu has hugged Toa and followed Shiori home, Murasame Rain replied. Well, it seems that the guy has no hostility towards us now. If he is willing to go back with Sister Shizi, then it means that he also plans to cooperate with us, right? Well, that seems to be the case for the time being. Although this guy Yayu is very mysterious, at least he doesn't seem to have any ill intentions towards us so far. And his purpose is also our purpose, to protect the elves and allow them to live like normal people. Isn't it? Yes, that's it. And with him, we have the confidence to negotiate with the guys at AST or the old guys above. As Kotori said this, she peeled off another lollipop and threw it into her mouth. Having powerful power in your hands is always a good thing. Although Yayu was not in their hands, Kinlai was very confident that she would be able to charm this guy with her beauty trap. She has not forgotten what Lingyan said to her at that time. Well, but does Yayu like someone like Lingyan? This is a little troublesome. Sister Shizi's words are still a bit too childish and not mature enough. Kotori said this, and immediately stared at Murasame Rain with malicious eyes, making the latter look a little confused. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 396. It seems to be another elf with a completely different appearance. I remember the sadness and despair that the girl exuded when I just saw Toa, but the girl in front of me is completely different. She is like a pure and lovely angel, making people feel pity for her. After listening to the girl's request, Yayu also forgot his purpose and began to search around, and then saw the rabbit doll that fell to the ground. Is it that thing? Looking at the girl's panic, she didn't know what the doll meant to her, but Yayu still went to the place where the doll fell and picked it up. Is this what you want? He picked up the doll that had fallen off the girl's hand in the rain and displayed it in front of the other party. Well, thank you, big brother. The girl opened her eyes very cutely and took the rabbit doll, not forgetting to say thank you to Yayu. Oh, it's nothing. Yayu smiled softly and watched the girl carefully put the rabbit doll on her hand. Then the girl suddenly made the doll's mouth move. Yaha, I'm sorry, big brother. It's really helpful. Is it ventriloquism? The rabbit made a wonderful high note. He tilted his head, curiously wanting to see the girl's face, as if to block the gap between Yayu and the girl. The rabbit doll continued to talk. Oh, I'd like to thank my big brother for your help. My name is Susuna, and her name is Susuna. The rabbit doll made a high-pitched voice, pointing at itself and then at the girl. This Yayu, who didn't understand, made a very puzzled expression. After staring at the girl carefully for a moment and seeing the latter's somewhat fearful movements, Yayu seemed to understand something. Are you scared? Yes, just like Toa, this girl who looks even weaker than Toa must be afraid of the world and fear of others hurting her, right? Is it because you are afraid that you use this method to disguise and protect yourself? Seeing the girl performing hard, Yayu felt a little distressed. You're an elf, right? The direct opening made Susuno's body tremble slightly, and he saw the girl's somewhat panicked face through the rabbit leaf waving in the girl's hand. But soon, the girl regained her composure and started talking to Yayu with the rabbit in her hand. Hoo ho ho, that's right. Master Susuna is an elf. Are you scared? Don't worry, I won't take action against you because my brother has helped us. The fourth series was using the rabbit doll to pretend to be calm, which made Yayu shake his head in amusement. He took a step forward again and came to the girl. Hey, big brother, what do you want to do? You can't be so close. I'm an elf, so be careful of getting hurt. Don't worry, I'm different from those people. I just want to help you. It doesn't matter what the elf says, because I am the one who protects the elf from being bullied by others. Hey, hey. Facing Yayu, who suddenly stepped forward and grabbed his arm, Susina suddenly became panicked and couldn't even control the puppet dialogue. I have to leave. See you later, big brother. She said this in a panic, and then the girl took a few steps back and left in a hopping jump. Yayu did not catch up, but just looked at the girl silently. After passing through the corner, she quickly lost sight of her. The girl doesn't trust him yet, so he can't act too hastily. It can be seen that the fourth series is very wary of this world and everyone. Sure enough, it was because Toa was an idiot that she trusted him unreservedly the first time they met. He couldn't help but think of the first meeting between him and Shixiang. Yayu looked dumbfounded. Anyway, let's go back and discuss the matter with Kotori about discovering the elf, although the girl's suggestion is probably to settle it on a date again. In fact, Yayu is also very curious about this elf, for example, why her appearance did not cause a space shock, just like Toa at that time. However, it was delayed for a while because of the strange elf girl. When Yayu returned home, Toa and Shizi seemed to have returned early. It seemed that when the two girls saw that it was raining suddenly, they planned to come back before it started to rain heavily. However, they seemed to have miscalculated. There was almost no time to react before the rain reached a certain level. Looking at the two pairs of wet shoes placed in the hallway, Yayu thought as he changed his shoes and walked into the house. But why is the house so quiet? Hasn't Kotori come back yet? While muttering this, Yayu walked up to the second floor, and immediately his body froze. In the corridor on the second floor, a girl who shouldn't be there was standing there carefree. The long dark purple hair covering her back is like crystal eyes. Even if 10 peerless are added in front of the description, it is still not enough to express the beauty of the beautiful girl who exudes such an overwhelming sense of presence. Toa stood there with her arms raised in the air and was trying hard to put on clothes. And more importantly, her body was completely naked. Titoka. Yayu was stunned for a moment. Although the two of them slept in the same room and it was not the first time to see the girl changing clothes, it was the first time to see each other's body completely and unreservedly like this. And most of the time, Yayu would deliberately avoid the girl when she was changing her clothes, otherwise he would have noticed the careless girl. I have to say that what I see in front of me are beautiful limbs like art, breasts that can be grasped with one hand, a tight waist, and buttocks that look very soft. It is a nude that is full of charm and mystery that makes girls all over the world respected beyond jealousy and envy. Ahem, why doesn't Toa put on her underwear first before putting on her outer clothes? Why? After hearing what Yayu said, Shixiang finally reacted, then lowered his head and realized what happened. When Toa lowered his head, the voice of Itsuka Shiori also sounded from the room inside. Toa, don't worry, you forgot your underwear. Itsuka Shiori stumbled out of the room. By the way, she was also naked, which was a little more naked than Toa. Then the next second the girl's scream resounded throughout Wuhi House. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 397. Cough cough cough. Yayu looked embarrassed, while Shixiang tilted his head and looked puzzled. It seems to be a normal thing for the girl. After all, they have been living together for almost a month. Toa has become accustomed to her body being watched by Yayu, so she doesn't feel anything embarrassed. After a long while, Shizi Wuhi, who had changed his clothes and blushed, finally walked out of the room. The moment he saw Yayu, he turned his head away in embarrassment. Look, did you see it, Yayu? At this time, anyone with normal emotional intelligence would answer that they didn't see it, but it was obvious that Yayu was an honest and courageous man, so he nodded vigorously. I see, there is still a slight gap compared to Toa. Oh, ah, I'm dying. After Yayu's words fell, Wilhi Shizi gave up and shouted, and immediately ran downstairs, making both Toa and Yayu look puzzled. Come on. Yayu, what is the gap you are talking about? Sister Shizi seems to be very unhappy. Kindness. Being stared at by Shi Xiang with pure eyes, Yayu looked slightly embarrassed, but following Yayu's eyes, Shi Xiang seemed to have noticed what Yayu was referring to. Wow, Yayu is really H. Why do I feel horny just by looking at your breasts? I just saw all of your body, so why is there no reaction at all? Yayu also looked dumbfounded, and soon there was another scream from below. Sister, what are you doing, running around the house naked like this? Where are you naked? Tisk, you are wearing such a thin shirt when there is a man at home. I really didn't realize that you are so bold, sister. The somewhat dumbfounding conversation between the two sisters came from down the stairs. In addition, there was also the voice of a very familiar old friend. The turmoil of adolescence. I'm really envious, you young people. So I already told you that it's not true. And why is MS Murasame Rain analyst here? Well, I originally met with Ling Yin today to discuss some things, but who knew it suddenly started raining, so we had no choice but to come back together. When Kotori said this, Toa and Yayu also walked down the stairs. Murasame Rain, who was sitting at the dining table in the living room, still looked like she was always going to sleep. She was wearing large pajamas and a towel hanging around her neck. Her hair looked a little wet, as if she was also affected by the pouring rain outside. Drenched. Murasame Rain, who was sitting in front of the table, was pouring sugar cubes into the steaming cup. The amount made Toa's eyes widen. It's been a long time since we last seen each other. Analyst Lingian sitting opposite Murasame Lingian, Yayu said hello. I'm sorry for using your sugar cube, Murasame Rain said casually while continuing to pour sugar cubes into the cup. This is Shixiang's. Of course it doesn't matter, but are you eating sugar or drinking coffee? Yayupo said speechlessly, pointing to the sugar cubes that were already piled up and about to overflow the cup. I accidentally put too much in. Murasame Rain looked down at the cup and said, then took out a sugar cube from the cup and put it aside. That's fine. I don't think there is any difference between this and just now. Yayu's mouth twitched slightly and he spoke slowly. You are so stingy. It's just a little sugar. Why do you want me to make up for it with something? Murasame Lingian said this in a daydreaming tone while slowly leaning down. The clothes soaked by the rain outline a perfect and attractive posture. You'd better go change your clothes first, the floor is soaked. Regarding the seductive gestures that Lingian could make, Yayu's looked indifferent, making the latter curl his lips in displeasure. Well, I do need to change my clothes. Lingian held her hair, which was still dripping, and twisted her slightly wet body as she spoke. Having already changed clothes in the room, Yayu looked at Kinlai and Lingian sitting on the other side of the table. The three of them are now in Kotori's room on the second floor of Wilhi's house. The space of 3 square meters is equipped with pastel-style wardrobes and beds, and here and there are filled with fantasy-style sundries and dolls. Originally, he was going to stay in the living room, but Toa suddenly said that he wanted to watch cartoons, so the living room was given to Toa. Then, whatever you want to tell us, say it now. It was also obvious that Yayu seemed to want to say something to them, so he sat in the room and said so in the piano. Well, it's not really a big deal. I think I may have discovered a second spirit besides Toa. Yayu said this casually, but both Lingian and Kinlai's eyes widened. What, is it true or false? Why didn't I get any news from here? There is no space earthquake warning at all. Have elves really appeared? Well, how should I put it? Anyway, today I did meet a strange-looking girl playing in the rain. She didn't look like a human being. Playing in the rain. Listening to what Yayu said, Kodari fell into thinking. If it was an elf, then it was probably that existence. Originally we wanted to tell you about this, but you actually already know everything about the fact that there is more than one elf. This is very simple. You can understand it after a little thought. Because space quakes are caused by elves, and space quakes have been reported all over the world. Although the scales are different, this shows that there is definitely more than one elf. That's right. Just as you thought, the number of elves is far more than one. It's not clear how many there are at this stage, but it is expected to be more than 5. Murasame Rain nodded and said. As for the girl you met today who is suspected of being an elf, if you guessed correctly, she should be the gentlest and weakest among the known elves. If it is her, even if there is no space shock in the present world, it's nothing strange. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 398. Oh, are there still such things among elves? That's right, even elves have strong and weak ones. Among them, Shixiang is a very special existence. Shixiang is called the first elf by us, and her identification name is Princess, a AAA level elf. The spiritual outfit is called Divine Power Spirit Outfit 10th edition. Its destructive power is extremely powerful, and it is a terrifying spirit that will cause extreme damage if not properly controlled. Murasame Rain explained methodically. As for the rest of the elves, according to my understanding, they all have their own characteristics, but they should not have the terrifying destructive power of Toa. As for this sudden heavy rain, according to the information you provided, there is no doubt that it was caused by that elf. Kodari, who had already tied a jet black headband to her hair at some point, and switched to commander mode, said. But, there is no space shock. Yeah, you nodded and raised the key to the problem. With the appearance of the elves, there will inevitably be space shocks. That's right, there was indeed no space shock, but there was also a time when Toa appeared in the world that there was no space shock, Murasame said in a deep voice. If the information is correct, it should be the second elf that appears this time. Identify the docile elf named Hermit, a rare elf who does not cause damage to the world. The characteristic is that when he appears in the world, he is always accompanied by a heavy downpour. Kodari expressed her inference. Hermit, the second elf Hermit. It seems like you have a lot of information. Yeah, you muttered softly. I'm sorry, this is top secret information, at least I can't tell you for the time being. Kodari shook her finger and said with a chuckle. I know, I'm not very interested in this information anyway. I will naturally have my own way to contact the elves. So I've said that dating them is the best way to make them shy. Why don't you just want to listen to my arrangement? Come on, your arrangement. Yeah, you rolled his eyes angrily. Thinking of what happened to Shiji, who had been specially trained in the past month, he couldn't help but feel sympathy in his heart. Well, anyway, the second elf should have appeared in the world. Although she is a docile elf, it does not mean that she does not have the power of destruction, Murasame Rain said with a worried look. You have to know that the purpose of AST is to use all means to kill elves, no matter whether the other party is really harmful or not. Although the second elf is very docile, it does not mean that she will be killed by others willingly. Those guys from AST. Yeah, you sighed helplessly. To be honest, after he learned about Tobiichi Origami's past, he could no longer say such words to the girl. After all, the other person's parents died because of elves. How could such hatred be easily let go? The second elf must be the girl he saw, a girl like that. Recalling the timid look on SI series, yeah, you couldn't help but regret a little why he didn't directly bring the girl back at that time. If it were her, how would she escape if she faced those guys from AST? So I want you to be ready to go out at any time. Maybe you will find traces of the second elf in the next moment. Then you must rush to receive the elf before the AST, otherwise. Murasame Rain was very serious. Said. I understand, Don't worry, I won't let her get hurt. Yayu nodded lightly and said. After that, 3.5 hours passed quietly. After dinner, Toa went to Shizi's study to ask the girl for homework. Neither she nor Shizi knew about the appearance of the second elf. After the two girls went upstairs for a while, Kotori, who was sitting on the sofa and licking the lollipop in her hand, suddenly raised a hand and pressed it on her ear, saying strange words, and then Kotori's expression became serious. Well, what? Okay, I understand. What's wrong, Kotori? Could it be that an elf has appeared? The only ones calling Kotori through this device at this time were the members of Fraxinus. Well, it is indeed much faster than expected, Hermit the Hermit, Kotori said with a shrug and stood up. So fast? Yes, Lingyan sent a message, saying that a sign of a space earthquake was detected, but the scale was very small and caused almost no damage, so she must be right. Qin Li said this and took Yayu's hand. The two quickly put on their shoes and stood at the door of the house. Aren't you going to tell Shizi? If I remember correctly, he is the key figure in your plan, right? Yayu asked a little funny and Qin shook his head gently. For the time being, it's better not to let them know. After all, we have to consider Toa's feelings. Let's move to Fraxinus first. Qin Li shook her head gently to reject Yayu's proposal, and then pressed a finger on the communicator by her ear again. Lingyan, are you locked? Prepare to teleport. Understood, Commander. Once she entered work mode, Murasame was extremely serious and meticulous. As her words fell, a ray of light suddenly appeared on Kotori and Yayu, and then the two of them gone. The scenery in front of me changed. When I raised my head, what I saw was the science fiction style bridge. Buildings that are unimaginable with today's technology. It's really hard to imagine how such an incredible airship was built. Commander, the moment they saw Kotori, all the members above Fraxinus saluted respectfully. Well, go back to your posts, Kotori waved calmly, with a leader's imposing manner, and gestured to the surrounding crew members to continue doing their own things. Yayu followed Qin Li, and the two of them walked to the command podium, and the crystal screen unfolded with a crash. Then, a noisy whistle sounded from the bridge. Oh, have you started? Kotori's eyes widened when she heard the voice. Very strong spiritual wave reaction confirmed. It's coming. While Yayu didn't know what was happening, the male crew member's voice came from below the bridge. When Kinri heard it, she snapped her fingers. Okay, switch the main screen to the prediction location. Understood, Commander. After Kotori gave the instruction, the main screen reflected the image of the street from above. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, Xiezhongdai Shang. Chapter 399. What appeared in front of him was the familiar street scene. After a month of life, Yayu was already very familiar with the nearby buildings and locations. Then in the center of the image, there was a crash and distortion. The space earthquake happened right in front of everyone's eyes. The space that was originally empty became ripples like pebbles dropped onto the water's surface. This is the first time that I have seen a space earthquake happen so intuitively. Yayu said with some curiosity as he looked at the strange and distorted scene on the screen. Yayu has always been very curious about what kind of power the elves have, but after studying it for a long time, he hasn't found any way. Because the power in Shixiang has weakened to the point where it is almost impossible to capture, although this power seems to have entered Yayu's body, Yayu still cannot find it. But what is certain is that the power of the elves is completely different from the power Yayu has. Yayu's power is full of corrosive power, whether it is the sin of this world or the extreme cold, but the power of the elves is not. Likewise, it is a gentle and tolerant force. Although this gentle force brought such terrible destruction as the space shock, compared with the power in Yayu's body, Yayu really couldn't think of any other way to describe it other than gentleness. Yayu didn't even dare to think about what terrible things would happen if his power went berserk. Well, let's take a good look at this incredibly beautiful scene, a strange scene that humans can never achieve. As Kotori spoke, the distortion grew larger and larger. For a moment, it felt as if a little white light appeared on the screen, and then, accompanied by a booming sound, the screen turned white. What erupted instantly was still the weird dark purple light, eroding everything around it, as if a greedy mouth swallowed up everything it touched with its tongue. Then after a few seconds, when everything calmed down, he looked at the original commercial street. Nothing is gone, like ridiculous scribblings erased by an eraser. Perhaps this description would be more appropriate. On the street where several buildings had been lined up until now, there was nothing left, and the ground was shallowly cut open like a bowl. The shops, street lights, electric posts, and even the pavement that were there all disappeared without a trace. Due to the aftermath of the explosion, the surrounding area looked as if it had been hit by a large typhoon. Fortunately, the evacuation work was done well, and this tragic scene did not cause any casualties. This look is very similar to the place where Toa first arrived about a month ago. There is no doubt that, the space shock that brings destruction and disaster to the world. The explosion only lasted for a moment and then ended. Although it was a small space shock, the damage caused was still so terrifying. Well, this outbreak is considered small-scale licking the lollipop, Kotori defined the scene in front of her. You're right. Then, Kotori, and the tall, thin man standing by behind her, the deputy commander. Kanazuki Kyohei said this. It's a fluke, I want to say it this way, but that's the extent of what Hermit can say. Well, that's right. He is also quite docile among elves, Chin Li said and looked at Yayu behind him. The next step is to see how you perform. The members of AST have already been dispatched. Yayu didn't say anything but just stared at the scene in front of him. On the screen in front of you is the place where the pits flowed down after being hit by the space shock. The rain is still pouring down, as if God is crying. Night has fallen, and the picture looks very dim. The sound of rain is ticking, ticking. However, none of this is what Yayujeo cares about. What Yayujeo cares about is the center of the pothole. In the center of the ground, which was partially dug out like a crater, the figure of a small girl can be seen. Standing in the center of the enlarged screen, the figure of a girl stood there quietly. A blue-haired girl covered in a hood decorated with bunny ears. He was about 13 or 14 years old. He was wearing underwear of incredible material under a big coat. Then on her left hand, she put on a funny designed bunny doll. It is indeed her. He muttered to himself and looked at the screen. Just now, thick smoke was billowing from the place where the elf known as Hermit was standing. I'm afraid it was attacked by a missile or something. Then, there were several humans wearing conspicuous mechanical armor floating around. Ground Self-Defense Force. Anti-Spirit Team, commonly known as AST. Unlike Kotori and the others' organization Ratadoskr, they are a special force whose purpose is to annihilate the elves by force. Then from the smoke, a small outline flew out with a puff. She flew in the air as if she was holding the doll in her left hand high, passed through the gap between the AST members guarding the surroundings, and jumped into the air. But the AST team reacted quickly and chased Hermit together. Then just like this, a large amount of ammunition was fired from the weapon attached to his body. Okay, send me there. No longer looking at what was happening on the screen, Yayubing said coldly, his words already mixed with anger. There is no way not to be angry. It is too much to treat such a cute and petite girl like this, isn't it? There's nothing we can do about it. After all, they are elves. Although they look so cute, They still can't change the fact that they are elves who bring disaster to the world. Coterie sighed softly as she spoke. Prepare to teleport and start fighting. Understood, Commander, a neat and loud reply sounded from the cabin. On one side of the destroyed building platform, in addition to several girls wearing incredible mechanical costumes suspended in the air, there were two girls standing quietly on the high building and watching. Hurry up! Don't let her run away, the girl floating in the air shouted, and there was already a cloud of smoke below. The moment the AST members spoke, the elf girl once again jumped into the air and escaped from the smoke. She seemed to have no intention of fighting back, and just ran away. However, her escape did not bring any mercy, and she was met with an even more unscrupulous attack. The Ultimate Lich King. Author, BasedonanAnime. Chapter 400. Why didn't she fight back? A somewhat puzzled voice rang out, coming from one of the two girls on the high platform who was not pursuing the pursuit. The two people standing there were none other than Ryuko Kusakabe, the commander of Tengu City AST, and Tobiichi Origami, the ace combatant. At this moment, the two women, covered in incredible mechanical costumes, were standing on a high platform supervising the combat operations against the elves. The one who spoke was Ryuko Kusakabe. After experiencing Toa's incident, the girl was also confused about her behavior. She often even thinks about whether hunting elves is right or wrong. It has always been like this, because the data shows that Hermit is an extremely docile type among elves. The silver-haired beautiful girl standing next to Kusakabe Ryuko answered coldly, it was Tobiichi Origami. Really, there are elves like this, Ryuko Kusakabe said softly. Ryuko, please don't be deceived by the appearance of the elf. Although she looks like such a cute girl, she still caused immeasurable damage when she appeared in the world, Tobiichi Origami advised. I just feel some size. Lizzie said softly. What Tobiichi Origami said is absolutely correct. There is no mercy when dealing with elves. They are all existences that bring disaster to the world. As a member of AST and an AST commander level person who commands Tengu City, Kusakabe Ryuko naturally knows how harmful elves can be. There is no room for sloppiness in the battle against the elves. We have seen enough tragedies, and Tobiichi Origami has other companions who share the same hatred. Even if it is for them, I must not be confused. Let's go and get rid of that disaster, Lizzie said coldly, his expression becoming cold and ruthless. Yes, Colonel, Tobiichi Origami responded. At the same time, Yayu, who came to the ground through the transmission device located under the Fraxinus, gently clicked the small earphone on his right ear with his right hand. Well, the elves have already entered the building. The members of AST will not attack for the time being. After all, their equipment is not suitable for indoor combat, so you should have a relatively good period of time to convince the elves. Coterie's voice, it rang from the earphones. I know you may be a little angry, but I still hope you calm down and don't act recklessly. It's not difficult to destroy all the members of AST with your strength, but if you do it this way, it will be completely opposite to your purpose, right? If you want to expect understanding and equality, then I hope you won't use violence. I know, I won't mess around. At least so far they haven't touched my bottom line, Yayubing replied with a chuckle, comforting Kinlai, who seemed a little uneasy, and then moved on. Lifting his head and looking forward, Yayu was now in a large department store standing on the street of the shopping street. On the other side, Kinri, who relied on a miniature camera to observe the situation around Yayu, watched him walk into the market step by step. Is it true that nothing will happen? Deputy Commander Kanazuki on the side expressed his worries. Well, it's the AST members who should be worried about whether something will happen. I hope they don't go too far. This guy is a little angry. Kotori said this and continued to bite the lollipop in her mouth. Although there was some worry in her words, there was no trace of worry in her face. Relying on the wonderful connection with the elves, Yayu quickly found the location of the 4 series. It's a bit dark and seems to be a place where the mall stores goods. Are you also here to bully the 4th series? Then, from above Yayu, a childish voice sounded. Just this voice made people feel extremely affectionate. Yayu raised his head and looked around. What was there was the mentioned girl hermit, floating upside down as if ignoring gravity. Huh. Then, as if he saw Yayu's appearance clearly, Sci-fi let out a gentle call. Is it you? She shouted in a panic, and the little girl shrank in fear. At that time, Yayu shouted out her identity as an elf, and the girl naturally regarded him as a person from AST. Guo, sure enough, he is the same person who wants to bully me, right? No, I'm different from them. I'm here to protect you. Seeing the girl's timid appearance, Yayu tried his best to make his tone gentler and spoke so gently. The latter tilted his head in disbelief, obviously not choosing to believe Yayu because of his words. Really, but other people hate the 4th series. As soon as he appears in this world, he will be hit with painful attacks. The girl said this in a sad tone, while the doll in the other right hand giggled. Only then did Yayu realize that this rabbit doll was not used for fun ventriloquism, but a false existence for the girl to disguise herself. A timid girl who is afraid of the world hopes that she can be strong and face everything in this world fearlessly, so she created the virtual personality of Shizna. Does it hurt? Although the doll of the 4th series was laughing loudly, Yayu couldn't laugh. Looking down at the timid girl hiding behind the doll, he couldn't help but ask softly. It doesn't hurt anymore. Listening to Nariku's caring words, a cute blush rose on Susanoo's face, and he lowered his head cutely like a little animal. What a lovely child, Yayu thought as he gently stroked the girl's head. Don't be afraid, SI series. Not everyone hates you. I don't hate you. I like SI series. Really, big brother. Well, come with me, Susina. Don't worry, I will protect you. At the same time, Kotori took in everything in front of her through the screen in front of her. What is the relationship between this guy and the elves? Can he conquer it in just 2 sentences? Then what is the purpose of all our research and special training? Hey, aren't those special trainings specially set up to tease Miss Itsuka Shiori? The deputy commander Kanazuki standing on the side said this in surprise, and then was stepped on by Itsuka Kotori, and fell down with a painful cry.